Hey, Allison Verhalen here, coming at you live for today's Marketing Monday. And I talked briefly a few weeks ago about the psychology of marketing and how psychology plays into marketing and why that's so important. And I realized that I broke one of my own rules, which is that I didn't really provide any hard and fast tips. Like, okay, this is great information. How do we apply it? I always love making sure that you can apply the concepts that I'm trying to talk about. So I'm going to break it down. So that video still exists, that blog still exists on my website. They're not going anywhere. I am breaking it down though into some of those core components, and I'll be devoting a video and a blog post to each component. And I think I'm also going to write a whole book about the psychology of marketing. So stay tuned for that. That probably won't come out until 2025, but that is what I'm working on now. So if there's anything you want in the book, any questions you want me to answer, let me know. So first and foremost, the first aspect of your marketing is your brand, right? So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. It's the first thing people see when they encounter your brand, when they encounter your company. Anytime they see you online, hear about you, your brand should be front and center in everything you do. So not only is it the first thing they encounter, it should be something they encounter every time they encounter your brand, encounter you, talk to you, have any questions, go to your website, go to your social media. It should all be consistent. It should very clearly be this company, right? If you think of the big brands that we all know and love, everything from Coca-Cola to Apple, right? You've got something that's quick and cheap and an instant gratification. And then you have something that's much more expensive and hopefully lasts a lot longer than a bottle of Coke, right? But they apply those same principles of their logo, super simple, which I find fascinating because they were developed in an age before thumbnails. And yet now we are in an age of thumbnails. At some point, not everything we see, but at some point, everything we see is going to be this big. So make sure your brand is recognizable when it's this big. Easier said than done, right? So they keep it super simple, clear colors. They stick to the primary colors. There's no like peach or off-white or something. It's white, it's black, it's red, it's blue. You know exactly what you're getting. You know exactly what you're looking at every single time. And that is front and center. Every single time you encounter their brand, you see that Apple logo, you see that the Coca-Cola logo, the Pepsi logo, whatever it is, you see it every single time. Coca-Cola is really good at this. All of their commercials, you see their label throughout the commercial. You are never unsure what this is an ad for. Every single time, you see that. So first and foremost, most important aspect of branding is familiarity. People like what is familiar. Just because it's familiar. If we have encountered it before, we're still alive to tell the tale, it must be safe, right? That goes right back to our lizard brain of, is this safe? Is this not safe? Do I like it? Do I not like it? The first aspect of do I like it is it safe? So if they've encountered you before and nothing bad happened, great, I like you. It's literally that simple. Not necessarily ready to buy from you yet, especially, again, Coca-Cola, probably more likely to buy from you. Something like legal services, professional services, not quite that simple, but it's a start. Getting them familiar with you, getting them to trust you, and I'll talk about trust a little bit later, is first and foremost. So familiarity, yes, this means getting your brand everywhere. And again, this is consistency. This is also why consistency is so important. It's part of the reason consistency is so important. Because if you're consistent, if they recognize you, then you're familiar, then they like you. If you change something about your brand from the last time they encountered you, so again, keep it super consistent, make people familiar with your brand. This is also why it's important to be, I'm not going to say be in all the places because that's not feasible, right? You don't have to be on every social media platform. I'm not on every social media platform. There's no sense in that. But you should spread yourself as thin as you can without going crazy or spending all your time marketing. There's a reason I'm on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all of the things, right? Not all of the things, but those are my core channels that I'm on, and I am consistently on them. There's no, okay, I'm over here, and this week I'm over here, and this month I'm over here. I am consistently across those channels. I spend more time on some channels than others, but I am consistent in my activity and my posting across those channels. So that is another thing you need to be aware of, is that consistency, so that if people are expecting a post from you over on this channel on this day or this week or whatever, are they going to hear from you, or are they going to hear crickets? So familiarity. How do people feel about your brand is the next one. This is, I mean, it's so important, and yet it's kind of amorphous, right? Like, how do people, you can't really pin it down. And even getting people to talk about how they feel about a brand can be a little like, I don't know, I've just known them forever. Or my mom always bought insurance from those people, so now I buy insurance from those people, right? It's kind of, I don't know. But again, coming back to trust, which I promise I'll talk more about later, but it comes back to trust. If your parents bought from them, you're going to be more likely to buy from them. If it was good enough for your parents, it was good enough for you. If it's the only insurance provider you've ever known, that's what you're going to work with, right? So how do people feel about your brand? You kind of reverse engineering this is more difficult than talking about how people feel about your brand once they've encountered you. There are some ways to do that, right? And I do, over on my blog post, I have a link to an article all about the emotions that are generated by certain colors. So when you're choosing your brand colors, again, stick to the primary colors as much as possible. And take a look at that chart and see what emotions people tend to feel when they encounter each color. Because that's gonna affect how they feel about you, totally on a subconscious level. They're not even gonna realize that they feel this way because of the colors of your logo, of your website, of whatever. But they're gonna have this gut reaction to, oh, okay, this is how I feel about this. So choose your colors carefully. Same goes for fonts. Your fonts also say something about you. And there's a whole other article I linked to about which fonts mean what. So take a look at that. Think about, again, how do you want people to feel about your brand? How are your fonts, your colors evoking that? Now, as important as emotions feel, there's also, I want to inject a little bit of practicality in here, because if you have two colors that you think really exemplify your brand, but they clash when you put them together, or they're too similar and you can't really see one color against the other. Let's say you have, one color is your background and the other is your print, but they're two, like orange and pink, for example, right? That's going to make people dizzy trying to read your content. So be practical with your colors, be practical with your fonts as well. When I was starting out, I chose a really cursive font that I thought looked really elegant and neat. And someone came up to me and said, I can't read this. And I hadn't thought about that. There's no point in content if people can't read what you're saying. So I changed the font to make it more legible. So yes, absolutely think about how people want to feel, but at the same time, make sure it's practical. Make sure people can actually see your logo and read your company name and all that good stuff. Now, trust. I told you we were going to get to this. Again, consistency first and foremost. This is another big reason why consistency is so important, because think about that person that, who are you going to call if you are in the hospital or need a ride to the hospital, or you're in jail and you got that one phone call? Are you going to call the person who always picks up? Or are you going to call the person who never picks up? Or the person who sometimes picks up unless they're busy or they're away from their phone or whatever, right? You are going to call the person who always picks up because you trust them. You trust them in this situation. Yes, there's a lot of situational stuff here, but that's a really good example of, like, who do you trust? Do you trust the person who consistently shows up for you? Or do you trust the person who's sometimes there, We all have those flakes in our family, right? We love them. We don't trust them. Not with the big stuff, not with the stuff that really matters. So first and foremost, you have to be consistent to build that trust. This goes back to your colors too. Again, people are going to trust you if they have an emotional attachment to your brand. So your colors, your fonts are going to create that emotion, and then the consistency is going to build that trust. So absolutely be consistent. This is one of the main reasons I tell people to pick a blog schedule, a social media posting schedule, stick to that schedule, commit to it like you commit to any client deadline, because it is that important in getting new clients, is making sure that you are consistently showing up. And they're going to be disappointed if you've set up that expectation of you're going to be posting every week, every other week, whatever that schedule is. If they're hanging on your every word, which is great, that's what you want, right? But if you've gotten them to that point where they're hanging on your every word and then you disappear on them, they're going to be disappointed. And now they have that negative association with your brand, right? This goes back to, how do people feel about your brand? We hate being disappointed. We all hate being disappointed. Don't disappoint your audience. Don't disappoint your prospects or your clients, because everyone hates that sinking feeling. So don't be that person standing them up on the third date or whatever, right? We all hate that. So again, consistency, show up, be there when you say you're going to be there, right? Like earlier in this video, I just said I'm coming out with a new book in 2025. That's it. I'm committed. Now I have to do it because I like doing what I say I'm going to be doing. So consistency, building that trust is so key. We've heard this over and over again, right? We work with people we know, like, and trust, and getting your brand out there, consistently getting out there and consistently providing value for your clients, showing up when you say you're going to show up, showing up at the same time every week, every month, whatever your schedule is. It's all about getting people to know you, like you, and then trust you. And that's when they're going to buy. Last, but certainly not least, I would say this is most important, is creating a sense of belonging and a sense of an in-group. We are tribal creatures. We like to say that we live in a global world and we're all one human race, right? And in a sense, yes, that's true. But again, our lizard brain still thinks tribe. The tribe is safe. Outside of the tribe is not safe. So you want to you can create a whole new tribe around your brand. That is super powerful. Also really hard to do. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time and effort, like months, if not years, to successfully build that. So I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, no, that's going to take longer to pay off. What you can do instead is build on people's sense of tribe earlier on, their existing sense of tribe, and just make them feel like you're already part of their tribe and you're part of their tribe. They're part of your tribe. So how do we do this? Language. I'm the word person. So again, how you show up, what you wear, colors, fonts, all of that can also, if people are familiar with these elements and they're elements they already like, that's already going to be like, all right, this person's okay. All right, this person can be in my tribe, if they have that feeling, and especially that feeling of trust. But at the end of the day, it comes back to the words that you use. This is why words are so important, right? Because if you are using the same words that someone else is using, they're going to feel like you are part of their tribe, right? Obviously, don't speak a whole nother language. That's the extreme version of this, right? If someone is speaking a language I literally don't understand, they're not part of my tribe. But there's also on a micro level, we even have within the same language, we have accents. We have slang that some people understand and other people don't. So if you're going to use slang, do people see that as professional, or do they see it as unprofessional? Do they see it as relatable versus unrelatable? Know that about your clients. Know if they're using slang, and if so, what kind of slang are they using? Because different people use different kinds of slang. So be careful about this. The best way, I always say, avoid jargon, avoid the acronyms in your content. If you are going to use acronyms, like CTA is a big one that I use, not Chicago Transit Authority, for those of you who are in Chicago, but the call to action. What is your call to action? That is what CTA stands for. So every time I use that acronym, I spell it out. This is what the acronym stands for. CTA equals call to action. Great. Now I can use the acronym CTA and know that I'm not talking over your head. I'm not using something you don't understand because I just explained it to you. So use that language. Don't talk over their head. Don't try to sound smart, because if you make them, again, back to how people feel, if you make them feel dumb, if you make them feel confused, they're going to click away and find what they need somewhere else, because it's that easy to find someone who's going to explain it to them in terms they can understand. So keep it simple, and use the language they're using. Swearing is one that I use as a common example. Some people find swearing super relatable because they swear a lot, and they think that swearing makes them the other person real. It makes them feel like you're not putting on a front. Other people find swearing super off-putting. Know your audience. Know what it is that they expect and what language they use. Best way to do this, obviously there's polls and social media listening tools like Mention. Those are all good things. But at the end of the day, just talk to prospects. Just know what kind of language they tend to use. I tend to do this in emails as well. Not only in conversations, I probably do it more subconsciously than I realize. But in emails, I'm very intentional about, oh, they used this word, so I'm going to use this word when replying to them, because it's the same word, or because it's similar. It's on that same kind of level as this language that they already used. So I'm meeting them at their level. I'm creating this sense of, I'm part of your tribe, because we use the same language, literally, right? So that is it. Those are my tips for you today for how you can use the power of psychology to make your brand that much more powerful. If you have any other questions, please feel. So that is avwritingservices.com, and you can reach me directly at info@avwritingservices.com. That's it. Have a great week and happy blogging, everyone.